Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of Classic Car Restoration Club Live Q&A. And I'm Mark Simpson and I'm joined again by Ross Keel and Terry Wright. So we're ready. We're going to try to get through as many questions as you guys can fire at us in the time we have available. And looking down before I look up at the questions that have already been asked, 78 Gold Trans Am wishes Ross a happy birthday. Is it your birthday yet, Ross?
No.
Okay,
No,
so then we got that out of the way. It's not his birthday, so apparently 78 Gold Trans Am is really messed up.
I think he's a little pre-birthday.
Pre-birthday.
Yeah. How close are we?
Saturday.
Okay. Well, happy birthday.
Thanks.
Happy birthday, Ross. All right, guys. Now, down before we get just really started, down below there's a box to ask questions. Feel free to go ahead and fire up your questions into that box anytime. The sooner you get them in, the better off we are. And below that, even a little bit further. Now, when I say to type your question in that box, don't go down to the far corner. There's a little chat button down there so you can speak to member services people, and those are people that can help you with your membership or subscription or any other membership issues you might have. But we don't want to talk to them right now. We want to type it in the message box just below the chat roll. And a little bit further down, and those people watching on Facebook and YouTube, you can ask your questions there as well. But a little bit further down, there's also on the Classic Car Restoration Club site, there's another box to download our guide to classic car terminology. It's just sort of sometimes there's a lot of jargon used in different areas, classic car restoration and dealing with cars in general. That refers to, different aspects of the car, the hobby. And it's kind of a little guide to help you kind of decipher some things that maybe you don't know. And maybe you guys are aware of something that's not on our list. And, we're always welcome to add new things. So feel free to look it over and drop us a line or drop it in one of our chat roll, something you feel that should be added. So, getting started, we have our good friend, Jim, who writes, I have a question for the live show scheduled for Wednesday, the 19th. He put his question in early, and we really do appreciate that. I own a 1983 Ford Thunderbird, and I want to change the front wheels from 4-lug to 5-lug wheels. The rear wheels will be changed to a Mustang 5-lug at the same time. Is there a 5-lug in a later Mustang or Lincoln or Cougar that would be a matching exchange or matching exchange to the spindles currently to the car, or do I need to swap out the AAM spindles, rotors, blah, blah, blah? In other words, does he have to do a full conversion, or is there a rotor that'll fit on the existing setup he has? And because you got your question in early, I was already able to do a little bit of research on my own. Otherwise, you would have stumped me right away. And the answer is for a direct swap, for a direct bolt on from 4 to 5 for the front spindle, and that would be an 83 to 94 2-wheel drive Ford Ranger front spindle will bolt right on. And
Kidding.
You mean the rotor?
The hub?
Yeah.
The hub?
Yeah, it'll bolt right on the existing spindle.
So the bearing hub, is it all one piece on it?
Yeah. It's like the old school stuff.
That's pretty
before
nice.
they went to that separate hub deal.
So you don't have to change out the whole spindle.
No,
Right.
that's the good side of it. So
You could
it's
actually
kind of
probably
like
just go buy them, couldn't you?
you could just go buy a set of
Buy
new
them.
rotors and bearings for
Yeah.
83 to 94 two-wheel drive Ford Ranger.
No kidding.
Wow.
And
I'm impressed. You found that out. I would have known that. I'm trying to
but
figure out what style.
a lot of guys want to go with like they're making the conversion from 4 to 5. They want to do they want to go with bigger brakes
Right,
too at the
right.
same time, and they want to like
Makes
beef
sense.
that up. So, but another popular thing that I saw out there was to convert to like the Lincoln Mark 7, which is about the same era
Yeah.
as the Thunderbird. So it's on the same chassis or same body, but it's 5-bolt. So, but those are bigger rotors, so you also have to swap over all the brakes
Calipers
and calipers and
brackets.
all of those and all that equipment. But if you're willing to do that, that seems like a better alternative to me is to go to the Mark 7 rotors and
Setup,
all of
the whole
that.
setup.
But I don't know. What do you think?
I think it'd be easier to find a Ford Ranger. Two-wheel in there. They got to be in junkyards everywhere.
Yeah. But there may be some benefit to the Mark 7 components as well.
I think they're bigger and better, maybe. So a T-Bird was 4-bolt, not 83.
That's what surprises me.
That's what surprised me too.
Apparently not all of them.
Okay.
It was like some of them, and apparently some of the Mustangs too at that same time had 4-bolt wheels in the early '80s kind of thing. And in doing the little bit of quick research, and you guys can offhand, you would have stumped me right out of the hole on this question. But offhand, I started doing the research, and it was like, it was the same point as you guys, where I was like, 4-bolt. They had 4-bolt Thunderbirds. That's a pretty good sized car to have 4-bolt wheel.
Yeah.
It's the same size as a Lincoln.
Yeah, same size as a Mark 7. So it's not a little car.
It's been a real economy car.
It was sort of that transitional moment, or even but it was like the research I was doing was like, oh yeah, you can take the axle shafts out of the Mustang, the 5-bolt Mustangs, and drop them into the Thunderbird.
It's an easy
And
Wow.
so there was like a number of things like that kind of caught me at that, and that was the rear axle. But his question refers to the front axle, and the information I had says the 83 to 94 two-wheel drive front spindles on a Ranger were going to get the job done. And
so is 83 the first year of that style? Must be.
I think so.
Because I know I worked at a rent-a-car place and I drove these big Thunderbirds up until 80 at least.
Oh, yeah.
They were big cars. They had all 302s in them. All,
the big V8s.
Back in 78, 79. I remember them because I got
So your birthday's coming up. You want to say how old you are? Because you kind of just did.
Yeah, I did.
He's old.
Yeah. After further consideration.
Well, let's put it this way. Graduated in 77. So.
After further consideration, Ross admits he's old. So yeah,
Caught up to him.
There are people that also, there's a ton of big brake kits out there for your car also, which doesn't surprise me because there's a lot of crossover applications out there. So if you want to upgrade to bare brakes or wheelwood brakes and stuff like that, there are options for you there as well. But if you're, like most guys, you just want to, they want to put on a nice set of wheels, but there's not a lot of really nice wheels in 4-bolt out there. It makes sense. The other option would be like adapters, and I'm not a big fan of adapters. They'll work. They'll get the job done, but they also move your wheels out and you got other issues with
Balancing.
everything else after that. So
Somebody has them on one of their cars. I don't know.
who has adapters?
Not over here.
My partner.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, you have adapters? I thought you just had spacers.
Well, adapter spacers,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah, because
They don't change the
you got
lug.
Corvette wheels
Yeah.
on a different.
they
Yeah,
just space them out further. That's all.
Yeah.
But-
yeah. I don't know. I've never had a spacer fail. I mean, I had one of my first pickup had spacers on it, and I abused the heck out of that, and I've never had an issue with spacers or even adapters. So I don't know. I'm sure there are guys that have had issues. So you got some horror stories to tell us about, wheel adapters.
I wouldn't use them on a high perf. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you're pushing 700 horse, you may not want to go with wheel adapters. The Greg writes, any special tips for a full forward floor pan removal and replacement on a 1964 Belvedere 4-door? Okay, we've got our body guy here who's good. We love to stump him, but I will preface it with a 64 Belvedere will be a no frame car. It's a unibody car, so that is a consideration when replacing big chunks of floor.
Yeah. Well, his
Yeah.
is unibody also.
What?
This is unibody also.
Yeah.
You should be able to tell us.
Mine's a half unibody and part stub frame, but still
Pretty much that is too.
kind of the same thing. So if you're going to cut out a big part of your structural integrity, you have to brace and mount before you do it. So you're not going to get your rockers. Rockers are going to be a good place to tie them down front and back. You're going to want to fix it into some sort of a jig before you take it apart, before you start cutting into it. Jig it, brace it. It's probably not a convertible, so you got the roof to help.
Mhm.
I would just jig it and brace as much as possible before you start cutting it out. And if your doors are able to stay on, those are good to use for gaps and check things, but don't do it on the suspension. Don't have it on your tires. Brace it up on the body.
Okay.
Get it off the suspension.
You use
But
them.
bracing, yep.
Yeah. There are some things you want to do with it on the suspension, but if you're pulling out all the floors, it's not a good
Floors,
idea
no.
or even half of the floors, it's not a good idea because the only thing that's keeping your car from going then is the rocker panels in there. You lose the integrity of the structure at that point. So you want to make sure there's no weight you want to reduce the weight on the suspension or and make sure that nothing moves as soon as you cut it out. I've seen cars in professional body shops or professional restoration shops where they've cut the whole floor out of it and saw them on rotisseries, front to back rotisseries, where suddenly you're looking at it and goes, the door gaps aren't right. The door gaps are, and it's like, oh my goodness, the body has flexed. And it's like, there's no, it's not an easy thing to come back from. It's not like impossible,
No.
but.
Once you weld it in wrong, it's tough.
Yeah. If you just throw in a floor and your body has flexed, now you've made your problem permanent, kind of thing, until you saw out everything that you just installed. So it's really critical to do triangulated bracing inside, just so nothing moves as soon as you cut that floor out.
Especially if you're doing it.
Especially on unibody cars.
Especially.
On framed cars, it's a little less critical because you can cut the floor out of a framed car if the body's still on the frame, and you can cut the car out and just kind of support it in different areas and get it all to work easier. But remember, on a unibody car like that, it's vitally important to make sure everything's braced so nothing moves as soon as you cut that floor out. Greg writes, after welding new sheet metal or patch, what is the best thing to do for the inside to prevent rust? Everything I see is primer, paint, prep, the outside surface. Here, Greg, you're into an area where professional people disagree. When it comes to the back, the inside to prevent rust, yeah, as soon as you apply heat to anything, even if it's got a full E coat on it, and even if it has weld through primers on it and stuff like that, as soon as you apply enough heat to melt metal, nothing exists on the backside of that panel or even between those panels in that area that is going to stop rust. So everything you're going to do is to prevent rust after the fact.
No doubt. It depends what type of patch you're doing too, what kind of a seam you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say most people are going to do some sort of a lap seam.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about prep and prime and paint on the outside. Well, you need to do that on the inside too. You need to seal up that gap as much as possible, or that seam as best as possible. Like Mark said, if you use your weld through primer and you weld it up, you just burn that primer away from the weld zone, and it's gone. Don't think that that's going to be your protection, because it's not. It's just not. There's different ways of welding. The one you're probably going to do is probably going to MIG weld it, I'm assuming, or spot weld it or stitch weld it, but you're probably going to MIG weld it. If you happen to have a spot welder or a squeeze type resistant spot welder, that's probably, you're not going to, there's areas, if you're doing a patch panel, you're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're putting a panel on where you can get around the perimeter, that's awesome, because then you could use a seam sealer or a panel bond, and you can actually squeeze weld through that. And it seals that weld. That's the best thing you can do. It seals it around it. It burns it away where the weld is, but it's sealed around it, and nothing's going to get to it. Just you're gonna be MIG welding, and if I'm assuming you're lapping the panel, and I've done it too, you're going to want to be able to get to the backside of it, because if it's somewhere where you can't get to, you're hurting more. But there's going to be places where that's going to happen. And you can use some cavity wax type corrosion protection up in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get back to it, either the backside, you want to clean up the metal, you want to prime it, you want to seal it, seam seal it, and then you can leave it seam sealer if it's not going to be exposed to the sunlight, or if you can't see it, you can leave it like that. You could spray some undercoating on it if you want to cover it up, but you want to seal up that seam. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt. You want to prevent anything from getting inside of it. It's going to be in that heat zone. It's going to be bare. So good luck getting that covered. You're not going to get it done. You're not going to seal it, get into where that weld zone is, but you want to seal it off so nothing gets into it.
Yeah, and I think that's like some of the best advice I can give people is, especially on lap welds, and normally we don't, the best practices don't say, we'll say don't use lap welds on the outside body of outside of a surface. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is moisture getting in the lap weld and creating rust. The other is the fact that you can't hammer out as you weld metal, it shrinks, and you can't stretch it back out again with hammer and dolly very well if it's lapped over itself, because then it doesn't want to stretch it. You've got like two pieces of metal you're trying to stretch at the same time. So that does, the best thing to do on the outside surface of the body is butt weld whenever possible. But even if you're doing a lap weld or butt weld, you really want to try to get to the backside, if you're doing a patch on a door or a quarter or a dog leg on a front fender or something, you want to try to get to the inside and seal that up. Just like Terry mentioned, use some seam sealer, use some, something you can spray in there, something to, best to try to, because, you've got, with welding, you're going to blue the metal. So you got oxidation, that welding oxidation, that bluing of the metal actually is an oxidation that will absorb moisture and promote more rust. So you want to, ideally, you can access it and clean all that off and apply a nice coat. You don't always have that luxury. So the best thing to do is to seal it with something just to prevent, any moisture from getting in from the backside. And once that's done, you've got most of the problem solved.
Yeah, if you're butt welding, you're pretty much restoring it back to the way it was, and you just treat the inside the same way you treat the outside.
Yeah.
You have nothing to worry about because there's no gap there.
Get at them.
Yeah.
That's ideal. Real world is there's a ton of lap welding going on.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
And you have to do your best to try to prevent any issues.
You can go on YouTube and find where they've pulled 3 quarter panel
layers.
skins off of a car because
I know we've talked about before, but there's another option that I really like, not for the exterior of the car, unless it's hidden underneath a molding, say underneath a chrome molding or something. But you can panel bond and talk about the best preventative sealing up that seam. You don't get any better at a panel bond because it's completely covered. So, I mean, that's an option too, but you're not going to use it on an open panel, on an exterior panel, because you'll see exactly where you did it.
Yep.
There's tricks and tips to try to minimize that.
But you can even lap welding on the outside of a car. You can run into that also, where where because there's more metal there, and the car stretches and shrinks when it's out exposed, especially dark colored cars.
Yep.
And suddenly you can see where there's a seam here where you cut a
exactly
quarter
where it
panel.
was.
And you just kind of look at it and go, oh, there's something going on there.
Yeah.
So, that's why ideally on the outside, everything's butt welded, but it's not always the case. You'll run into a lot of cars that aren't. And if you are going to lap weld something on the outside body, make sure you seal the backside really good, because that's the weak link in the whole thing, because the top's going to have primer and sealer and paint and fillers and everything else on the front side, but the back side is where a lot of guys neglect, and that's what gives them trouble down the road.
And humidity itself will do damage. So you can say it's not on the rain, I don't wash it with water, or
I never washed my car.
Humidity is
Especially after you weld.
David writes, any way to use a dry filter in oil bath air filter? Oh, so you want to keep the original look of your oil bath air filter, and on your engine. It seems to me, and guys, you're probably going to have to, pipe in and tell me, but it seems to me there was some conversion stuff out there to do that. I know other guys that will, when they show their car, they don't have oil in their oil bath filter. It's just in the trunk. And then they put the oil bath filter on their car to show it. But normally they drive around with a dry, normal air filter.
That seems like it's overkill to go that far, don't you think?
Your truck.
To be worried about it being that.
If you're gonna,
I'm kidding. I'm with you.
That'd be right up there with putting decals on your oil filters to make sure they.
That I get behind.
I got a nice text.
But so there are ways around it. I'm not, back in the day, I know like the first few cars, old cars I had, they had sort of an adapter kit where they took the top, or where they had a top for like my 37 Chevy, it had a top for an oil bath on it, and then it had a pan that it must have been sold with this filter kit, so you just kind of sandwiched it in, but it didn't look stock. It definitely looked like a. And then the filter element itself was just steel wool in a kind of metal grid kind of thing. And I suppose you were to mint the oil that too kind of thing, kind of like a precursor to the K&N filter. But, so there are options out there. Is there the perfect option? I don't know. I'm sure there might be something out there to address that, especially for a 53 Ford.
Very popular kind of car.
But or you can do like I said, empty the oil out of your oil filter, keep it in the trunk. If you're going to show it someplace where you really want to have it all original, just pop off the old air, pull the newer style air filter and pop on the new one, and you're good. Nobody's going to fault you for not using the oil bath. Although I've never had any trouble with the oil bath either, given that.
I don't know. I've never had one.
Don't look at me. I have to trust. I have to trust you guys know what you're talking about because I'm far too young to even experience that.
All right, Frank asked, is it worth fixing up an '88 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Is it worth fixing it up? Yeah. Yeah.
We don't
Any
know.
emotional or sentimental attachment
They have.
to?
It's probably
Sure,
a
why not?
Yeah. Front wheel drive.
88. I don't know. Is it Fleetwood? A Fleet wheel? Would
It is.
drive an 88?
Not positive, but I'm thinking it is.
I don't know.
Order a Fleetwood.
Seems
Why
to me
not?
that would be too big for front wheel
Well,
drive.
88s, they weren't too big.
Maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, I'm showing my
Some of our
Cadillac
audience
knowledge
could look
again.
that
Now the guys are all like, "Yeah, you don't know nothing about Cadillacs."
Guilty.
We get, it's a question that comes up once in a while. Is it worth restoring this? Is it worth restoring that? Kind of, part of it is taking, what are your own skills?
Yeah.
What is the car? If it's just a car that has no meaning to you other than you got it at a good price or whatever, then, but if it was your father's car or your grandfather's car or something like that, you may have a little more leeway in there to, but,
What kind of shape is it?
what kind of shape is it? What's it gonna, kind of do your own evaluation, what your skills are, what you don't have for skills. If you're going to need paint, if you're going to need, engine work or something else, you're going to have to pay somebody else for. Kind of take a note and say, I've seen cars where people, they don't want to do any of the work themselves, but they, it's going to require a lot of work. Well, in that case, I'd say, maybe it's best to let that one go and find yourself a much cleaner '88 Cadillac Fleetwood that doesn't require as extensive restoration. I know it seems kind of counterintuitive, but it's the kind of thing that can happen with, I've seen guys that get into cars too deep, and they, as soon as you have to start sending a lot of work out, you're going to get way underwater on your car.
Yeah, it would take a lot of sentimental reasons to sink a lot of money to a car that you're not going to get back out of it. But if it means something to you, then why not do it?
I think if it's nice shape, it's probably always worth it.
Yeah, and you'd probably be able to get all kinds of parts for that still because it's not that old. Where
in that era of cars, I get questioned, where do I find parts? You'd be surprised how many of those cars are still in salvage yards. So, I can think of a half a dozen near me that would probably have parts for one of those cars. And being here in Minnesota, all the interiors and plastic parts are going to be perfect, but the outside of the body would be rusted completely away. Unlike in the southern cars, which would be just the opposite. So,
the body nowadays is
Yeah.
Main body costs.
I'd rather have a solid body over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take solid body over interior any day of the week.
Maybe it's just because where we're at, because it's rare.
It is.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
exactly
yeah.
what it is. It's
Yeah,
where
I
we're at.
remember looking at,
And
when
yeah,
I
where
when
it's
I
from.
was a kid, I remember looking at, 68 Camaros and go look at one in the paper and it'd be like all rusted out and it was like, and this was in the early 70s.
That's in
Yeah, it'd
really
be
good
5
shape.
years old. And, well, no, they didn't want to last that
It
long.
was
They
5
wanted
years,
to
it
buy
was
another
a
one.
5-year-old car and it was all rotted out and it was like,
Yep.
what?
Yeah.
And nowadays, I think things have changed so much over the years that we don't appreciate how long some of the cars do last
No, we don't.
before they get all
Mhm.
rusty. So yeah, is it worth it? You pretty much have to make that call, Frank,
Yeah, no
but
doubt.
it's take into mind some of the things that we've talked about and make that judgment for yourself. Jeremy asks, what would you recommend for a high school senior that is looking to get into classic car restoration? Looking at a degree at an Academy of Art in classic car restoration versus gaining experience at a shop. Most shops are fearful of hiring 18-year-olds out of high school. Yes, they are. Yeah.
I think they're far and few between, though. If you find a good kid coming out of high school.
Yeah, well, it's like any. It depends what kind of aspect. I know there's more than one aspect. In having dealt with a lot of professional restoration houses, you go into any pro restoration house, and there'll be guys that do just metal fabrication. There'll be guys that do just body and paint. There's guys that do just final assembly and there's guys that do small parts and piece restoration kind of thing. So there's different aspects of it. Can you learn it? Can you learn it on the job? Yeah, you can learn it. You're going to have to make good friends with somebody with a shop that's going to bring you in and bring you up to speed. You're gonna be working for nothing for a few years. You have to, that's paying your dues, and that's one of those things that I keep saying, like a lot of young people don't understand yet. And I'm not going to put you in this category, but I run into a lot of people where kids don't want to pay their dues. They want to, instantly be making top dollar if they haven't actually, learned this trade yet. Can you go to school? Yeah, my son went to Wyotech. There's other people that have gone to. There's a number of different schools, UTI and in the vocational schools, and where you can pick up some of the skills you'll need to get a better paying job, whether it be welding skills or fabrication skills or body and paint skills, or there's a number of avenues you can get the skills you need. And, that will bring you, but you're going to have to pay for the classes. You're going to have to invest the time there as well. Is there one path that's best? I don't know. I know guys who are in the restoration field have gone multiple different paths,
Pick one, I guess.
Yeah,
It's
you know. And Chip Foose started as a art school, graduate or student. So can you get there?
No matter where you start, you're gonna start off pushing a broom.
Mhm.
But get into a shop and then find out get your fingers into all of it and help out everybody and see what you like best.
Yeah.
Because there's no doubt that I prefer painting over body work or engine building or interior. That's just me, but you might find your niche. Was the question on what kind of vehicle you should start with?
No.
Oh.
Jeremy's looking for, what do you recommend to a high schooler who is looking to get into classic car restoration?
Into restoration, not what to start with, kind of a vehicle.
Looking at a degree at an
Yeah.
academy, in restoration or gaining experience at a shop?
I
think you almost have to take classes.
Well, I tell you
to
what.
get into it.
Personally, if you have a shop that you can get into somewhere, go get the experience. Go get the hands-on
Yeah.
experience. You can go take a class somewhere, but you're going to start exactly where I just told you where you're going to go.
Yeah.
You're going to start. You're not going to jump into a job in a position like that, knowing what you
right.
need
That's
to
what I
know
meant.
to be even at the middle of where they're at. You're still going to start at the bottom and work your way up. I mean, you could do it. I mean, if you know which way you want to go get education, but go to a shop,
Right.
start and see what it's all about. You may find it's not for you at all.
Right.
You know,
That's why I think I'd pick something. Pick body.
Yeah,
Pick-
and I don't know. I see it as multiple paths. I see some guys that go in it. They get the schooling and then they've got the skill. Like even with my son, he couldn't weld two things together when he
Right.
graduated from high school. But after going to school to learn welding, he can TIG weld with the best of them. And so, that's not that what he learned there would have taken him 10 times longer to learn on the job.
Exactly.
Where where he goes to school, they set him down and he's going to spend, 8 hours welding, and they're going to go criticize and teach him each step all along the way.
but you got to know that's what you want to do.
Right.
But that's
right.
But if you
why
don't
I'd
know,
pick-
I wouldn't want you wasting your time.
I mean, pretty much if you want to go into that, I think you've already tried to do some of that kind of work, try and, work on cars. I mean, that kind of tells you what you're going to enjoy doing. I mean, if you ask me.
But I mean, like Mark says, there's many aspects in just working on cars, restoring cars that you could focus on.
Yeah.
You don't have to be. I mean, you may want to do it all. You may.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it's like
Maybe-
even the restoration schools out there will offer you programs for upholstery,
Yeah.
or for high performance engine and chassis, or for different body and paint and different aspects along the way. So they all have their own selective niches in there.
Mhm.
It's hard to know offhand what's really going to rev your boat until
Mhm.
you try some of this stuff or get exposed to it. So.
I've seen way too many people go into one specific area, spend the money in education, and get out there and change their mind.
Yep.
So I'd maybe get a feeling of what you like first. If you know you like welding or interiors, I mean, then go after it. Then be really good and make yourself a little more valuable to the workforce once you go out. Yeah, for sure. But don't be surprised if you go into a shop and you're starting at the bottom, pushing a broom, and learning things from the bottom up.
Yeah.
Because that's how most of us did it.
So yeah, bottom line, Jeremy, there's probably not one clear path to a career in car restoration. A lot of it's going to be built on opportunities. So try to make those connections early. If you're a high schooler, there's probably half a dozen auto restoration shops in your area if you seek them out. And even if you go work for them for minimum wage for 6 months and say, I want to get the exposure, I want to work for somebody. If you go in there and just work with them for 6 months, even if you're like cleaning up after them most of the time, you'll have the exposure to know what really going to trip your trigger, what's going to, especially if you get into a bigger full service shop that does a lot of different things. It would be a good investment in helping you determine, where you want to go.
Mhm.
The Pete writes, when switching from a carburetor to a throttle body EFI on a 1970 Chevy C10, do I have to switch to a throttle cable, or can I keep the mechanical linkage? I'm not convinced. Well,
I don't think you should. It wouldn't make any difference.
Yeah.
it would, if it's just a throttle body, yeah, it wouldn't,
mechanical.
yeah,
instead of a cable.
I think a lot of the Phytech solutions and Sniper solution, they're using the stock available linkage
Right.
to the best of my, just like they're hooking it up
The
just like a
placement's the same.
carburetor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would think you'd be able to just use
I-
the stock mechanical.
I don't think you need to switch to, I don't think you need to switch to a
No.
cable, and apparently,
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
Just be my guess.
I mean, it's all adjustable still, on a mechanical.
yeah.
You still got the adjustment there.
Before I get much further, I'm gonna go to that point. You can go ahead and ask your question and let's fire it up. The right, and I usually stop halfway through to make sure I know this. Yeah, refer you guys to the down below here. There's a little box there to download our free terminology guide, and it's just sort of a PDF of the different terminology used in car restoration and the car hobby in general. It's a great resource. It's free. You don't have to pay for nothing. So go ahead, click down there and download that. I think you'll find it useful. But we've reached our point in our schedule where we do our show and tell, our new segment in here. And Terry is once again pulled through with our show and tell item today. So Terry, what have you got for us today?
Well, nothing, Mark.
Well, that proves that. Sorry about that, guy.
No, I brought today an item that I found online, and it was like one of the top best tools at SEMA a year or two ago. It's called a Thread Wizard,
Okay.
and it's just a tool to help clean bolt threads. I have two of them here. There's one that's a standard thread, and one's a metric thread, and I think the difference is just the size of the holes.
Okay.
You could probably get by with one of them, but I thought they were kind of unique, and I kind of squirreled them away in my Amazon cart or something like that for buying someday. And when my wife and kids asked what I want for Christmas or birthday, and I said, well, I got all kinds of little ideas that I wouldn't mind getting. So my wife bought these for me.
Yeah.
And
You got a good wife.
Yeah.
you keep telling her that. She's all right. But anyhow, I thought I'd show it. I haven't used it much, but I did a little work ahead of time and tried it, and I've only used it once outside of here, but I thought, well, I tried it, and I came over here looking for some really nasty bolts from Mark, but so I have a couple. I'm actually going to show it to you. So
right.
I'm gonna have to get up. I think I'll get closer so you can kind of see it a little bit. But
What's the name of this tool?
this is called Thread Wizard,
Okay.
and threadwizard.com. I think we looked it up earlier. If you have that
I think
page,
it was
let's get it right.
threadwizard.us, I think.
Threadwizard.us. I want to make sure that you can. I mean, you can just Google Thread Wizard. I'm sure you can get it. But
We're gonna look it up real
yeah, why
quick
not?
so we can confirm here, guys.
why not?
Yeah,
So-
it is threadwizard.us.
Okay, well, to look it up, but and I think they're available a lot of different places, and they're not horrible. They're between $20, $25, $30, something like that.
Okay.
For one, I wanted both just because I wanted to have both, but I don't know if you really. There's
And
not
what-
a ton of difference in the sizes.
And what they do is as opposed to
As opposed to taking your bolt to your bench wire wheel and sitting there holding your fingers or taking your
and
brush
then catching your finger
Yeah.
or then propelling the
Yeah,
bolt
flinging it
across
across
your
the shop.
garage
right into the fender of that nice red
I've
car
never-
back there. Never done that?
lately. Today.
So I will take and I'm gonna grab. I'll bring a couple bolts here.
I don't know if I'd have
Yep.
to refocus.
You may have to refocus.
Yeah, you may need
Well,
to refocus.
why don't you go ahead and get behind the camera if you have to?
All right.
But let's see. I'm gonna grab these guys here.
That one was pretty rough.
Yeah. So I'll come over like this. You tell me. Come in closer.
Come in closer.
How much closer do I need?
There you go. You're-
Right about here?
You're doing
Yeah, good for the
fine.
light.
How could we not possibly hold it up higher?
Okay, so,
All right, now I gotta see if I can focus there. I
Okay.
think it's on autofocus, but apparently it's not. Oh, here
hang
we
in there
go,
with us.
here we
You
go.
probably see Russ, awesome, right?
Oh,
You
no.
got a handsome face.
Yeah.
We may never get this to work again.
May not, uh-oh.
Oh, wait, no, it's focused now.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so I take a bolt like this, and I ran this one through, and I don't know if you can see very good, but it really cleans the threads really nice. This is just a wire wheel in there,
All
and you
right.
just run it in and out. And I'll take this new one, or this dirty one that has some, looks like some RBT on here still. And I'm gonna, when we find a hole,
You move around too much. There we
I'll
go.
try to slow it down. Find a hole that'll fit it, and I'm just gonna start it in there. I think that's the right one, so. Start it in there, you can do it by hand with a ratchet, I just gotta get back here, I'm just gonna run it in. And run it out. I'm gonna do it and
Look at that.
take a look at that. And look how clean that got that. Can you see that very well there, Mark?
I'm trying to. Let me zoom in a little tighter.
I'll try to hold
There,
it.
that little block out Ross. All right,
Good, I'll try to-
and we don't get that where we all want to be. All right.
Cleaned it up really good. I mean,
Yeah.
and they claim,
Okay, show me you got a bolt that you haven't cleaned yet?
I have to go back over here.
Oh, no.
What do you want one?
I know, I'll take you through it. I
Take that
gotta, I know, I'm coming back. So, let me grab these two. I can just show you that there's a before and after here.
All right.
So,
Now I gotta get focused on you. Wait a second. There we go. We're focused on you again.
so the stop one is these were exactly alike. Stop one
Alright.
is a dirty one and that one's a clean one.
All
So
right.
they cleaned this thread up really nice. And
Yeah, that looks beautiful.
And the claim to fame is that they don't remove any material at all, I mean metal.
Uh-huh.
So like maybe a front chaser or a dime might do.
Yep.
Now, we're not fixing threads here, we're just.
Yeah,
Right.
using a die or a
You're not
thread
tapping
chaser,
it.
you always run
Yeah.
the risk of damaging the threads on your bolt. Where in this case, you're just cleaning them up and you can get like better torque, you can get, bolts assembled easier.
I don't know, I could take the washers off. Let me try it. Let me do this one.
Terry's messing with me.
Sorry. That was the dirty one. And it was a washer. And that's how it looks afterwards. I don't know if there's good light on that or
That
not,
looks good.
but nice and clean.
Yeah.
That looks-
I think it's worth having and it's a little easier. You can bolt this, clamp it in place, it'd be even easier.
Yep.
You don't have to do it by hand, but you can do it by hand, not horrible.
Cool.
So anyhow, that's the thread wizard.
The thread wizard.
You could probably even use some degreaser.
It has the Terry Wright seal.
Seal of approval? Well, as we know, that doesn't take much.
Even with degreaser, even you'd probably work pretty well.
Even with what?
Degreaser. If they're all greasy.
Oh, sure, yeah, you could
degreaser
spray a
on
little
there.
car
Run 'em in
cleaner
and
on
out.
there, run them
Yeah,
through,
or
but
even, there's probably a lot of benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're installing something.
the thread wizard.
And wizard.
Red is standard and blue is metric. Now, there's no thread, it's just a wire wheel in there.
And no part of this presentation has been bought or paid for.
Has not, has not.
Fred Wizard, we are an independent,
So
review process here.
one thing I was wondering about that, would after a while, would that wear down that wire wheel after a while? Sure it would, but
Looks like
then you
it's
loosen up and
replaceable.
just kind of move it. Because there's plenty of area that
the little
doesn't-
wire brush that's
Yeah,
inside
yeah.
actually rotates.
Yeah,
so.
that's it's just a machine screw, kind of blind nut it looks like.
See.
Yeah, you can just rotate it. So
And
kind of
it-
cool.
And unlike putting it on your wire wheel on your grinder where it like
Mhm.
spins it out somewhere
Yeah.
around the shop, or you end up catching your fingers in
Tearing
the
your
wire
finger out.
brush, and then
Yeah.
you've got like,
Hurts.
ever have one of those like wounds on your finger? You
No,
know,
never.
that smarts like a Dickens for a long time.
Yep.
So,
So
yeah,
I thought it
it's,
was kind of cool to
it's a-
share.
It's a cool tool.
Yeah, whenever
It's a
there,
cool tool.
whenever I think there's something that's kind of cool, to share. I'm not just, you know,
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I don't own it, but yeah, that's kind of cool. Okay, you're up next month.
Better start working on that.
Okay, we're all right, guys. We're back at it again.
Okay.
Thanks, Terry, for sharing.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
The raw rights. Hello, guys. I'm thinking about converting the braking system on my 57 Chevy truck to a updated truck model. What do you think? I'm thinking about converting the braking system on my 57 Chevy truck.
Trying to think what era that is as far as.
I'm
Fitted.
offhand. Well, it's a popular enough
Yeah.
vehicle
Aftermarket.
that I'm without doubt there are options out there available to upgrade it to, a 57 would have probably single reservoir, probably be under the floor. If you want to go to firewall mount, if, those options are out there, there's still some under the floor mount systems that are available with boosters and everything else. So there are options available for you out there. What do I think? I think modern braking is better than a single reservoir master cylinder any day of the week.
It's a no-brainer.
And I get, I get hammered by guys when I say that, just because they're like, oh, it's not original. Blah, blah, blah. You can make a single pot reservoir work just as good as a dual. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But it's a safety issue.
Yeah.
It's sort of like if you blow a brake line, you still have brake with a dual reservoir. If you blow a brake line with a single reservoir, you have no brakes. You are.
I have experience with that.
Let's hear about it,
It's
Terry.
stock.
Thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was stock thing, but it was also, I was a teenager and I was broke. But it was our 66 Bonneville. It's a single cylinder, and I ran it low. I knew I had to top it off. It's like checking the oil when you fill it up, check the brake fluid. Well, it ran low enough where I came up to a stoplight. It was stopping. I rear-ended this little car with that big old V Bonneville bumper, and I demolished that thing.
Yeah, that's.
And guess because it was dry. It was one cylinder dry, or single cylinder dry. If it was dual, I would have had some brakes.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's, there are no shortage of horror stories with single reservoir master cylinders.
That was mine.
And
Brake didn't help you.
And I'm a big proponent on any car, and even even if you're die-hard purist on your restoration, most organizations, I know the DeSoto Club, they say no points deductions for going to dual reservoir, no points deductions for going to power brakes. With a more modern power brake, they do no points deductions on the car whatsoever for your braking system. It's just safety. It's about safety, flat and simple. What was great brakes in 1942 is not necessarily good brakes today. We have the technology, and there's no reason you need to put your life, your loved one's life, or the other people on the road's life in danger just because you want to be a purist. And it's like one of the few things that I'm like, I say there's no reason not to upgrade your brakes. other than some people are just stubborn about that stuff. And I know it's,
I don't have to worry about that. Currently, I'm fine.
I think your car would have came either way, wouldn't it? Or
No, I think it was a dual master cylinder both. Either.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there was any single on any Firebirds back then.
I think 60.
Even 67.
66.
66 was the Bonneville that was single. But I don't know when they changed it, but Firebirds, all the Firebirds I've had have been dual cylinder.
Okay. It would have been around then. I think
Yeah.
some of the Fords even moved later than that, but I'm not sure either. We have like a Ford guy in the audio did yours was dual. Okay. Yeah,
my
it
Chevelle
was
from-
right around mid-60s when they started to phase out a lot of
Yeah.
that stuff, and you started seeing fewer and fewer of the single reservoir stuff. But
Because I think, my buddy had a 64 and it was single Chevelle.
okay,
But my oldest one was a 66 and they all had duals.
okay.
So,
Yeah, and like I say, if it's not dual, I think it should be. And I know I'll get some heat on that, and then that's fine.
I can't even argue that.
Okay, Jasper writes, hi, I just wanted to say thanks for your show. Oh, I have no questions today. Well, great. Don't be afraid to ask Jasper if you do have questions in the future. And even if it's just like something, a topic you'd like us to discuss, we're always open to that, we'll like, fight each other on some things, you can always ask us the questions that every car guy has different answers, like, like what's the best car wax or what's the best oil? And, those are the kind of questions that'll take all day to answer.
Give me some more show and
Each
tell
one of
ideas.
us
I'm
are
running out.
Thanks for coming out, Jasper. Okay. Raul writes, thank you so much for the help. I agree. Safety is paramount. Yep. Glad you agree. Neil writes, hi, I do have a question. A Ford Connect van, the lights stay on for 20 minutes after exiting the van. Ford says it can't be adjusted, fixed, not even an option to go into the computer. It doesn't sound correct to me.
No, it doesn't sound correct to me.
20 minutes?
Seems like you should be able to
battery's
adjust
dead
that.
in the middle. Well, maybe it's not in winter, but
20 minutes,
Minnesota,
that
their
can't be
battery
right.
be gone.
I mean, it doesn't sound right to me, 20 minutes. I
It
think
seems-
typically you could adjust the length something stays on like that. It's surprisingly that can't be adjusted.
It surprises me that, I can understand that it might not be user adjustable if it is that long. Geez, that seems a horrible long time. So if I pull into my garage late at night, my lights are going to stay on for 20 minutes after I leave the garage.
Yeah, 20
Wow.
minutes seems a little excessive.
My Durango stays on for at least 60 seconds, and I thought that was a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my
Well,
Malibu
I
does too.
think, that Trailblazer I have, I know that'll stay on for 3-4 minutes. And that bugs me. And it's
Yeah.
it's like I turn it off and I go, and then I look out at night, and I look out in the garage and the lights are still on that thing. It's like, geez, when is it going to turn off?
My Durango, if I turn it off auto, then they go off right away when you turn the car off.
Yeah.
If you turn the switch off, take it
Yeah.
off auto.
Yep.
But you got to remember to turn them on at night.
Try that.
Yeah.
Try that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a switch.
Yeah.
you
Turn it off auto
Yeah,
and see if that changes it.
yeah.
And then you're turning on and off all the time.
Yeah, 20 minutes
You
seems,
just
20
gotta
minutes
remember.
seems, 20 minutes seems like almost like there's
Yeah.
thing on. I don't know.
That's kind of odd.
I know if I leave on most of the newer vehicles I have, if I leave the doors open or something, and
That's like
then the dome lights on and all that stuff, but after there it takes like 20 minutes before it shuts
But
everything
it will shut
off.
it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it will shut everything off.
Yeah, that seems odd.
I'd get a second opinion.
Neil
personally.
writes, it is a commercial vehicle if that matters. Okay.
Could.
Yeah, I don't know if why would they do that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, Ford had a better idea. Okay, our Ford people are giving me scowls now, so we'll go back to, yes, that sounds interesting. Okay, Bill writes, please explain to me the circumstance in which high zinc motor oil would be necessary. Thanks.
We've recently discussed this, but
Yeah, but we can,
Yeah,
not necessarily that Bill was here. The high zinc motor oils are, the
Newer
zinc
motors don't need
zinc was originally put in the oil as sort of a lubricant cushion kind of thing. So it was especially beneficial for flat tappet lifters where the camshaft is actually hitting bumping against a flat surface on a lifter. Problem with the zinc was when it's in the oil, any oil eventually gets into the exhaust, and the zinc in the exhaust caused catalytic converters to clog up. And the EPA came in and said, well, you can't put zinc in oil anymore because it's clogging up catalytic converters. And so they took it out. But the problem is when the oil industry first took it out, they just took it out and didn't say anything. And most of the engines were already, most engines on the market were already running roller lifters and roller rockers and everything else. The motors that got hurt by it are the flat tappet motors, especially if they were fresh rebuilds and there was no conditioning of anything in there. So the second those engines either went on dyno or were installed in a car, and they'd wipe the camshaft lobes off. It would just grind them to a smithereens because there was no longer that zinc there to cushion those lifters. But since then, I think a lot of people become more aware of the benefits of zinc especially for the older flat tappet cars. So there are a host of additives that are available, as well as there are oils that are available, high performance oils that have additional extra zinc in there to give that cushion that it needs. And so if you do have an older motor, and especially now, I know a lot of, some people say, well, you don't need it after you break, after you got, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 miles on the engine, you don't need the zinc anymore because everything conditioned and broke in. I disagree with that. I say if you have a flat tappet motor, run the high zinc oils and you won't have any problems. There was like a lot of people had said years ago that, run the diesel oils because the diesel didn't lose the zinc right away. They have in more recent years lost some of their zinc. So don't go by it. Oh, I'm running diesel oil, because they have cut down on the zinc in the diesel motors too. But you can still buy the high performance oils, and there you go in and to the store and look at them, and some are clearly labeled high zinc. Mm-hmm. Or there's additives like the ZDDP stuff where you can, you can run whatever oil you want to, but add the zinc additive to the oil. So you have options.
Most performance oils have zinc in it. Most performance.
Yeah, most high performance oils have zinc. I think like Valvoline was a BR1 or whatever.
I just changed mine to Valvoline ZR1.
ZR1.
Yep, it's got high amount of zinc in it. I just did it. Yep.
And so I think, at one point, a lot of guys lost freshly rebuilt motors, but I think a lot of guys have now gained the knowledge that you can't do that, especially on new rebuilds. And most rebuilders will tell you not to just run it without high zinc.
Yep.
It was VR1.
Not
ZR1.
Yeah.
Okay, Neil writes, there's no adjuster on the switch. I think what they're referring to is usually there's like a auto
Position.
on off position, and then there's, I know there's auto on. I know most of my trucks are auto on off, and then there's one that's just off,
Yeah.
and then you
Yep.
go to on and
Intermittent.
so.
Daylight running
Yeah.
lights, I think something like that.
But we don't
Optic
have enough
wipers.
new commercial Ford owners here to.
Neil.
Yep. Yep.
I
And
would-
then Neil adds found on the road dead. Okay.
Oh,
No,
ouch.
come on. It was first on race day. Come on.
If it's that stripped down, maybe
Yeah,
it doesn't even,
usually
maybe
it's out of
maybe it doesn't even have it.
I don't, yeah. Mark, let's see. My son bought a rebuilt Ford FE 390 engine from an estate. After installation, it seems to have a lot of blow-by coming out of the oil filler tube. What troubleshooting do you recommend? A lot of blow-by, where do you get blow-by? By the rings. If it could have very well been a rebuilt engine that hadn't been, used in a while. The problem with engines that are, after they're rebuilt, if they sit for too long, the rings can lose their ability to seal because they've been stuck in one position for a long time. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I hear about a rebuilt engine with a lot of blow by. But the other thing is how rebuilt was it? Not every rebuilt engine you buy is rebuilt.
Tell us about that, Ross. No, let's not go down that.
We're not going there. But buyer beware. It may be the kind of thing where it needs a fresh. Maybe it is freshly rebuilt. It's no runtime or whatever. But 90% of blow by is going to be a ring.
You could have one bad cylinder to do a compression test.
Yeah. You could. Yeah, you might have just one cylinder where the rings are hanging up or something's not right.
Through.
Yeah, good thing. Yeah, good idea. Do a
Compression test.
do a compression test and see exactly where it's at.
Yeah, because even if they're all bad, then you got all bad rings.
Or it wasn't really rebuilt.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll find out.
Yeah.
Do a compression test.
Will the ring seal in time? He writes. Maybe.
Possibly.
If it's a fresh rebuild, maybe.
Yeah.
If it's a fresh rebuild, maybe after it goes through a few heat cycles and starts getting used, it's very possible that they'll start to seal better.
But if you have that much crankcase pressure, I'd definitely take a compression test because there's got to be a lot if you're pushing that much smoke by the compression by the cylinders. I mean, it's got to be one that's really bad, or they're all.
Yeah, a compression test will tell you a lot about the motor. Compression test will should tell you where you're at, especially with blow by. Blow by 99% of the time is you're getting exhaust gases into the crankcase. That's blow by. So where is it blowing by? It's blowing past the ring. So what's the problem?
Exactly.
The rings. No other way around that.
No. I mean, if it was valves, then
You'd have clatter and noise,
Yeah,
and
you'd
you'd
miss
have
it.
other things going on. If it was even seals and guides and stuff. But yeah, if it's just flat out blow by, that's got to be a ring.
Yeah.
All right. I see we passed the top of the hour, guys. Thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it. As always, the hour just flies by, guys. Looking forward to next month, and hopefully it'll be a lot warmer then.
Maybe.
It better be.
You know, here in Minnesota,
We're
we had a little teaser of a week of 80
Mhm.
mid 80s, high 80-degree temperatures. Now we're back to snow. So, you know, we're getting used to it.
No, we're not.
We're itching to get out and drive. So any day now, by the time we're talk next time, we'll all have our cars out and be enjoying them again.
Yeah,
And
that'd be nice.
until next month, we'll catch you guys later. Anything else, guys?
And we're good.
No,
Okay,
Have
thanks.
a good month.
keep the
Yep.
shiny side up.
We'll see you next month.